Kamala Harris's approval rating is now at 28%, which is an historic low for any modern vice president.
Yes, Jimmy Kimmel. Where has he been? I guess he took the summer off. Back in 2021, Jimmy Kimmel said that Kamala Harris had the lowest approval rating for any vice president, modern vice president, 28%. And he brought out a gospel choir to sing about it. The left. They're just not connected to reality. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on the Chris Plant Show on this Friday. Hallelujah to you. Third hour of the show coming up with so many different takes and twists of things that are happening today. Donald Trump is expected to sit down with Benjamin Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago not long from now. I don't know if it's going to happen during this hour. We'll keep an eye on it. The security around Mar-a-Lago, as you can imagine, is crazy, as it should be. After all, somebody tried to kill Donald Trump just a couple of weeks ago, and we saw what happened in Washington, D.C., where they couldn't even protect the flags in Washington, D.C., or the monuments in Washington, D.C. The left is crazy and violent and dangerous at the same time. I'm sure some people will say, well, why is Donald Trump meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu? Well, he was president once, and there's a pretty darn good chance he'll be president again in a few months, and then Netanyahu's going to have to deal with them. And he's also the guy who brought the Abraham Accords to the Middle East. And this administration has done just about everything it can do to kill the Abraham Accords because they don't like peace. They don't like the nation of Israel. And so yesterday, Kamala Harris had her meeting, and she was speechifying afterwards, pretending to be the president. It really does disturb me that nobody in the mainstream media is saying, where is the Joe Biden statement? But they wouldn't say anything about it because they are complicit with the coronation, with the appointment of, the anointing of Kamala Harris. And in case you missed it, she said this when she was pretending to be president.
I have had an unwavering commitment to the existence of the State of Israel, to its security, and to the people of Israel. I've said it many times, but it bears repeating. Israel has a right to defend itself, and how it does so matters. Let's get the deal done so we can get a ceasefire to end the war. Let's bring the hostages home.
Yes, the hostages, 5 of whom are Americans. I wish somebody would focus on that as well. We had 39 Americans who killed almost 10 months ago on the Hamas terror attack on the Israeli people. Kamala Harris pretending to be president yesterday, pretending to talk tough. There is word out of the Netanyahu camp that the meeting was nowhere near the serious level that Kamala Harris is pretending it was. But she's going to want to make you think that she is the strong candidate, even though she's not. She's a panderer, just like Joe. Just like Joe is. Now, we also had news starting at 5:01 this morning on the East Coast. 5:01 this morning, the Obama family, Michelle and Barack, endorsed Kamala Harris. They put out a video with their full and total endorsement of Kamala Harris. And it's kind of funny because we all knew this was coming. We all knew it was happening. We knew on Monday or Tuesday that was probably going to be the end of the week that the endorsement was coming. And we just wondered what day it was going to drop, as the cool kids say. So Barack Obama and Michelle Obama put out a video endorsing Kamala Harris. 55-second video. Highly produced. It's got titles. It has subtitles. And as I was told on Twitter X, the subtitles are there for people who don't have sound on their Twitter X. I get it. I understand it. But it just seems a little bit of heavy production for what should have been a simple endorsement. You know, Chuck Schumer at least went just in front of the cameras inside the Capitol and gave his endorsement. Then Hakeem Jeffries came up and gave his endorsement. Nancy Pelosi's given her endorsement. But to have a fully produced Hollywood-style video of a call between these two, just a little over the top. But then again, the Obamas are now Hollywood producers, right? Don't they have a Netflix deal? I believe they do. This is the call, in case you missed it.
Kamala. Hello. Hi. Hey there. Oh, hi. You're both together. Oh, it's good to hear you both.
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh, my goodness. Michelle, Brock, this means so much to me. I am looking forward to doing this with the two of you, Doug and I both, and getting out there, being on the road. But most of all, I just want to tell you the words you have spoken and the friendship that you have given over all these years mean more than I can express. So thank you both. It means so much. And we're going to have some fun with this too, aren't we?
Yeah, we're going to have some fun with it. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. I can't wait for the Kamala Harris impersonator to be on Saturday Night Live. Do you think that's in the works right now? Do you think they're going to open up with an interesting sketch making fun of Kamala Harris and her laugh? I doubt it. There's some pretty credible Kamala Harris impersonators out there, and they're doing a pretty good job. I cannot wait to see the opening of SNL and how they just absolutely destroy Kamala Harris for getting the nomination without getting a single vote, for managing to stomp on, 14 million votes that Joe Biden accumulated. The Trump campaign is saying that they should deserve a refund for having to campaign against Joe Biden when the Democrats apparently knew for some time now that this wouldn't be happening. They knew for some time that Joe's decline, cognitive decline, was such that he would never become the candidate. He would never make it through the connection. The question that so many are asking, and I think we need to fairly have a fair discussion about this, is when will Democrats wake up that they're being lied to? And what happens then? What happens when someone has lied to you for this long? How do you react, or do you just say, okay, I'm going to take it? I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it. It's really disgusting to me. Let's go to line one for a quick second. Kurt is in Illinois. I assume listening on the great WLS in my old hometown and Chris's old hometown of Chicago. Kurt, welcome to the program.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
I just have one thing to say. Back in the day of the Nazis, Heinrich Himmler, he was a propaganda minister, and he came up with a good line. He said, if you tell a lie once, it's a lie. If you tell a lie 1,000 times, suddenly it becomes a truth. And I feel that in these situations where the media is on the side, obviously, of the Democratic administration, so they can parrot everything that the administration said, so it suddenly becomes the truth over time, being that Kamala Harris was the border czar. And now they're saying, no, she never was the border czar. And George Biden was he was the greatest president, and they compare him to George Washington. So all the other stuff gets put in the background when they keep parroting that narrative, like the Russian hoax, For a long time, I almost believed it because you kept hearing it over and over and over again on the news. Well, it must be true, and that's where the baloney starts to set in.
Well, you're right with the first letter of that word. The B is correct. It is Bravo Sierra, what's been foisted upon the American people. The difference between then and now, Kurt, the difference between what Himmler was allowed to get away with in terms of propaganda is that we now have records online that are easily accessible because the internet is forever. And there are myriad videos of every element of the mainstream media debunking the lies that were being told today. For example, they called Kamala Harris the border czar for years, and now they're telling us they didn't. Only we have proof that we can show your own network calling her the border czar. And now it was voted yesterday in Congress with 6 Democrats voting alongside that the border czar Kamala Harris failed at her job. It is interesting to see the reaction to the people being shown the mirror of truth that is just shooting all of their, I know I shouldn't be using that violent rhetoric, destroying all of their lies right to their faces. And we just have to keep up the pressure. We just have to continue. We had this discussion yesterday. The left just isn't willing to accept that we're not going away quietly. The left and their friends in the mainstream media. But excellent point. Yes, we should never forget what the Nazis and Himmler were up to, and they used propaganda better than the Democrats because they didn't have the ability to get the video thrown back at them. Thank you, Kurt. Appreciate you. The other story I want to talk to, yesterday I had a conversation after the show, had a conversation with Caroline Sunshine, which is such a great name. She is one of the Trump campaign people. She's one of the people out as a spokesperson for Donald Trump. We had a conversation about the debates. And Donald Trump is willing to debate whomever will be the Democrat candidate. As of right now, there is no Democrat candidate. There isn't one. Joe Biden pulled out of it on Sunday. Granted, he has nominated or he has endorsed Kamala Harris, but as of this very moment, there is no Democrat candidate for the presidency. So yesterday, when Kamala Harris was leaving Houston and flying back to D.C., and she landed at Joint Base Andrews, and the media talks to her, she tried to flip the script, as it were, and say that Donald Trump was backpedaling. Here's what she said.
Let's listen in to Vice President Harris. So sorry.
Previously agreed upon September 10th debate. He agreed to that previously. Now it appears he's backpedaling. But I'm ready. And I think the voters deserve to see the split screen that exists in this race on a debate stage. And so I'm ready. Let's go.
Will you do it on...
So Kamala Harris is saying, well, Trump agreed to debate on September 10th. Yes, he did. Donald Trump agreed to debate the Democrat nominee. You are not the nominee. You are somebody who has aspirations to be the nominee. And your party elites have chosen you, but the people have not. And I endorsed it. I told Caroline Sunshine this. I think this is the greatest stance you guys could take until and unless the party actually has a nominee. You shouldn't agree to anything. And even then, as Donald Trump said, he's willing to debate, but he doesn't want to do it on NBC. Yesterday, I think we played that clip from Fox and Friends where he had said he agreed to the last debate on CNN and he got Jake Tapper and all the other mess. And now he wants to have maybe Fox do this. And we will see what happens. But very interesting that the Trump campaign is saying, yeah, we'll debate whoever you got as long as you got a candidate. Right now, you have nothing. Close your eyes and you'll see who you have as a candidate. Right now, you have nothing. 14 million disenfranchised voters right now. I wonder how many of them would have chosen Kamala over any of the other people. And trust me, there are now a host of people who are standing up saying, well, I would have done that. And they're being told, shut up and sit down. If you dare challenge Kamala, you're racist and sexist. And you'll never get another dime from the DNC. We'll get into this. I want to talk to you about it. You're welcome to join the conversation. 888-630-9625. It's Mike Opelka in for my friend Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show.
You're listening to The Chris Plant Show.
It is the Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka in for my friend Chris Plant on this Friday. Hallelujah to you. I said we'd go to the phones. We're going to the phones. Let's go to line 1 and Glenn in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Hello, Glenn.
How you doing, Chris?
Chris,
it's not Chris.
Mike. What? I'll take whatever. Thank you for the compliment.
Mike Opelka. You're doing a good job. I appreciate it. I appreciate sometimes the scientific take on things. So just checking, though, what's your thoughts on Kamala Harris being the candidate? Is she a lock? And if they do change her out, what's that going to look like?
Well, it feels like it's a lock now that the Obamas have endorsed her, and I know that was the plan all along. But now that Barack and Michelle have both endorsed her, it kind of feels like they figured a way to get this across the finish line. They're going to have the virtual nomination with the delegates before August 7th. And so that will set up the convention for her. But it still doesn't hide the fact that they bypassed 14 million voters. And unless there is a groundswell of anger about that, you're not going to see any change. So there can't really be a legal challenge from the Trump team unless they do something as it relates to the money, the Federal Elections Commission, because the money that was transferred was given for Joe Biden's campaign. Her name was on that ballot somewhere on those campaign solicitations. So that's how they're dancing around it. But I don't think there's a groundswell against her yet. And it may be too late. That groundswell might happen between the convention, the debate, and then the eventual voting in America. But early voting starts in September in some states. So they've got to do something pretty quickly. They've really got to get moving, Glenn. I don't know if there is time to push her out. And then how do you justify the next person without having some kind of blitz primary? I don't think there's time. I think they've surrendered that ground already. So they're stuck with her. Yeah, they are stuck with her. And it's not exactly a marriage of convenience. We'll see what happens. We'll get into this a little bit more. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show.
This is The Chris Plant Show.
It is the Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka sitting in for my friend Chris Plant as he is on vacation enjoying his cruise, I'm expecting. We will be regaled with stories upon his return. And we are trying to cover all the news. By the way, there is breaking news. The FBI now says they would like to interview Donald Trump as part of their investigation into the attempted assassination of said Donald Trump. Really? You haven't talked to him until now? That's kind of amazing that this story is breaking. Oh, we want to talk to Donald Trump. I would think that would have been one of the first people you talk to. And maybe you interview everybody involved at the scene. Astounding to me. It's astounding. Donald Trump is speaking with Benjamin Netanyahu today at Mar-a-Lago. I don't know if Netanyahu's staying over. I know he is very religious, and at sundown, I don't think he'd be getting on a plane to go home. Maybe he'll stay the night at Netanyahu. Maybe they'll have a Seder at Mar-a-Lago for Benjamin Netanyahu. Wouldn't that be interesting? I'm sure the left is going, why is he talking to Benjamin? He's not a leader. Well, there's a pretty good chance he's going to be. If you look at the latest polling, even with Kamala Harris and the honeymoon bump she's getting, things are still looking solid for Donald Trump, especially in the swing states. Currently, I think Wisconsin is the only one where Trump does not have a lead in swing states. Wisconsin, which makes you wonder who they're really vetting for the vice presidential slot. We're seeing that Mark Kelly, Senator Kelly, is currently the favorite. Governor Shapiro out of Pennsylvania is currently high on that list. and that is a swing state that the Democrats definitely need. If Donald Trump gets Pennsylvania, it's pretty much game over for the Democrats, pretty much. And it's been tilting that way, as there's been a great concerted effort to register Republicans in Pennsylvania, especially in Bucks County. And that was flipped, apparently, in the last couple of weeks. I want to do a little lightning round on the phone, since so many of you have been calling and on hold and very patient. Let us go to the phones. Let's start in one of my favorite towns, Buffalo, New York. Line 5, John, welcome to the program. Hello, John.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I was wondering, now, we all know that presidents and vice presidents always dine, I think, once a week or once a month together. And I was wondering, do you think President Biden, since he's known to fire no one, ever asked Kamala Harris why she's constantly firing people? Because that would be a natural question to ask, right? Wouldn't you think?
Well, it's interesting. She's had a turnover of more than 90% of her staff since she has been vice president. So it's 3.5 years, 90% turnover. It might be a question. I don't know if Joe even cares, though, about that. And we did hear that from the FBI director the other day in the hearing that Kamala Harris is in the meetings on occasion. She's not in the briefings all the times, but she is there. And I do wonder how many times they have lunch together. If it's once a week, then they've had lunch over 150 times. If it's once a month, it's only been about 35 times or 40 times. So it's a big difference. I'd like to know when they last spoke, and are there readouts of their meetings? That'd be an interesting question, John. But the turnover, here's now that Biden is not going to be back, I wonder what the press secretary thinks about her future, because she worked for Kamala Harris before she got this job. And reports were she was leaving and she wasn't happy. And then they moved her into this job. So if Kamala Harris is the nominee, is she going to start sending a resume over to MSNBC? I don't know if there are any openings over there right now. But that's certainly an interesting turn that could be in the works very soon. We'll see.
Yeah, one other thing I wanted to mention is there are a lot of people out there now who are fired by her, right? So wouldn't they be available to Fox or someone to ask them about what kind of employer she was? You know?
Oh, I hope there's some people spilling their guts. That would be fun, John. That's a good idea. Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks.
Let's go back to my old hometown of Chicago, the great WLS, where Jim is listening. Hello, Jim. Oh, line 3 is Jim in Chicago.
Mike?
Jim.
Yes.
It's all you.
Oh, and let me turn off the radio here.
Good. That's a good plan. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyways, Biden, he's got to be the most bitter man right now. In other words, he was denied an opportunity to be 8 years at 600 Pennsylvania as president, and who does he blame the most? Obama and Clinton. And like any organized crime family, a member of that family will turn state's evidence. He knows, he's like Sammy the Bull Gravano. He knows where all the bodies buried by Obama and Clinton.
That's a really interesting point, because Joe Biden has been around, but you have to wonder if his memory is failing at this point. He has been around the Obamas and the Clintons for so long, but does he have enough memory left to say what he knows? And I still believe there's a parachute coming, that there is a great golden parachute coming for Joe Biden to leave and keep his mouth shut.
Well, he could be like J.R. Ewing. In other words, he has a safe full of blackmail material.
You know, I didn't even think about tying it into to nighttime soap operas like Dallas. That's interesting,
Dallas.
Jim.
Well, anyway, and also The Godfather, where Don Corleone told his son Michael, you got to take care of some people for me. I'm not going to be around.
Well, that may be the case as well. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you being there. You know, we talked about the U.S. flag earlier, and Donald Trump is saying that anyone who defaces, destroys, burns the U.S. flag should get a year in jail. And Joe Biden seemed to back that up when he was a senator. On line 9 is Judith in Manassas, Virginia. Judith, you have a take on this as well?
I certainly I do. I work with the DAR, and this is one of our pet projects. And there's a United States Code. 99th Congress wrote it, and there's been a revision on it from the 101st Congress, passed into law criminal penalties with respect to the physical integrity of the United States flag. And under that it says, whoever knowingly mutilates, defaces, physically defiles, burns, maintains on the floor or ground, or tramples upon any flag of the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned for not more than 1 year or both.
So there's up to a year as a penalty and a possible fine as well. It's already in the code. So all we have to do is enforce the law. Well, we're not really interested in doing that, it seems, anymore in this country.
Apparently not. And there's also in that same code, under Code Part 176, never be used as wearing apparel, bedding, or drapery. And it spells it out in detail.
Yeah, that was the thing that my dad, who was a Navy guy, used to talk about all the time. It really bothered him when people took the flag and cut it up and made shirts out of it. I don't know about bedding or drapes. I've never seen bedding or drapes made from the flag, but that would be cringeworthy for me as well. Judith, thank you so much. Great information. Appreciate you being there. Let's go back to line 1 and Paul in Cook County. Paul, welcome to the Chris Plant Show.
Hi, Michael. Let's see if I can make you laugh. What's the difference between Donald J. Trump and Joe Biden?
What is now I like where this is going. What is the difference between Donald J. Trump and Joe Biden? I don't know, Paul.
Donald J. Trump survived his assassination attempt.
Ooh, wow. That's I know we're talking about political assassination attempt. There was a newspaper, I think it was a foreign newspaper, that had a complete cover earlier this week that said Donald Trump took the bullet, but it killed Biden's career. And never.
Very good. I like that.
It was a full cover titles. Donald Trump took the bullet, but it killed Biden's career. Absolutely
true. If I could hit you with two quick things. If Kamala Harris wasn't the border czar, why wasn't she? What else was she doing with her time?
That's a really good point.
This thing, the Democrats talking about Donald Trump being a threat to democracy. Can they name me one court order from a federal court that Donald Trump disobeyed or ignored? I don't think they can.
No, they can't. But as Chris often points out, the Democrat playbook is the old Soviet playbook. They point a finger at you and three are pointing right back at them. They accuse you of what they're doing because they realize what they're doing is so egregious and outrageous that they need to deflect the attention away. So that's exactly what's going on. No, we're not the threat to democracy. It is the people who just invalidated 14 million votes who are the threats to democracy. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate you. All right, let's go to line 7 and Paul in Maryland. Paul, welcome to the Chris Plant Show.
Great show, Michael.
Thank you, sir.
The most important thing I've heard today was what you said, basically, stick to the issues. Forget this stuff about her cackling. Forget this stuff about she was 29 and Willie Brown was 60 years old when they met and he pushed her career through. Forget that stuff. We're not going to win on that. We are going to win on the issues, regardless of who they put in place. So when they start to and first of all, I think it should be broadcast on Newsmax or Fox, but Newsmax first. Now, when they mention something about immigration, turn it around and ask why they, not her, but why they, the administration, canceled all of Trump's successful policies. When they talk about economy, again, ask why they stopped and or canceled the drilling. Turn them back on the issues, and we will beat the hell out of her.
Yeah, you're so right. And I pointed out that it's a losing proposition to go after Kamala Harris because she may have dated her way into political influence, which is obvious to everybody. And when we look at ourselves, we have flawed candidates with histories that aren't exactly spotless. And so that's a losing proposition. Where you gain traction with the American people is back to what Reagan talked about, too, is are you better today than you were 4 years ago? If we look at what Donald Trump brought to this country on a broad level of accomplishment, prosperity, peace, security, opportunity, and pride in America, all of those things are winning issues. And if the campaign goes from that standpoint, saying, here's where we are today, here's what we're going to do. You know what the Democrats are saying? Well, as Biden was trying to say before he stepped out, hey, inflation's down. We've got it down. But as the economist Carol Roth pointed out the other day, look, the first year you gained 10 pounds. The second year you gained 6 pounds. The third year you gained 4 pounds. Yes, you're gaining less weight, but you're still 20 pounds heavier than you were 3 years ago. That's the problem. Americans are being crushed by inflation. I was at the grocery store yesterday. It is insane how expensive things are. And so push the reality of the situation that people are facing. Right. We're not secure. We're not comfortable. We're not proud anymore. And that's what we need.
One last thing, please.
Sure.
Believe the FBI? Should we? They influenced the 2016 election. They influenced the 2020 election. And Christopher Wray is up there testifying before Congress talking about fragments, wounding Trump. I don't believe a doggone thing that the FBI is saying. Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being there. So many things. And with Christopher Wray and the FBI now wanting to interview Donald Trump, I still ask why. One of the important things that was just brought up on that phone call from Paul in Maryland, the next debate, I would be all in for Chris Plant moderating the next debate. I know he'd have to suppress some of his snark and comedy, but can you imagine Chris Plant and maybe Vince Colonnese as the two debate moderators on Newsmax? I think that would be spectacular, but that's just me. I'm biased. Mike Opelka stepping aside. I'm in for Chris Plant as he's on vacation right here on The Chris Plant Show.
There's only one Chris Plant. The Chris Plant Show.
It is the Chris Plant Show. Almost time for us to get out of here for the weekend. So happy Friday to you. Friday Luya to you. My name is Mike Opelka. I'm in for Chris as he's vacationing on the cruise. If you're regulars, you knew that. And I'll be back next week to try and get to everything. And I know everybody's saying, well, Congress is going to be out. Trust me, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. Plus, we have the Olympics kicking off this weekend. Let's hope that the security forces have the upper hand against the ne'er-do-wells who are trying to make a mess of things over there. And let's hope our Americans do well. I like to look for a positive note always, somewhere, something to lift you up. And I saw something yesterday in the House, as a representative from Virginia, Jennifer Wexton, the Democrat, gave a speech, a remarkable speech. And I'll just give you a little bit of her speech yesterday. And it may not seem like it's that groundbreaking until you understand how this speech was made. But just check this out.
I hope I can be a voice, even an AI voice, for Americans facing accessibility challenges and other disabilities, because too often people only see us for that disability. And in truth, we are so much more.
Such an important message.
Jennifer Wexton was diagnosed with a rare neurological disorder that has robbed her of the ability to speak. So if you knew her just a couple of years ago, that's what she sounded like. And they have taken a very simple program that any one of us can use called 11 Labs. And if you take bits and pieces of your old self speaking and put it into the 11 Labs computer, you can pretty much type in whatever you want, and it sounds like you. Sounds very human. So while Wexler may have lost the ability to speak, technology has given it back to her in a remarkable fashion. It's the same kind of advance we saw that helped Democrat Senator John Fetterman regain the ability to hear and process speech, which he lost after he had a stroke just before he was elected. Now, I don't agree with everything Fetterman says. He's turned out to be a real friend of Israel. He's also turned out to be a guy who appreciates the real Democrat process and not the anointment of people. And by the way, Fetterman wore a suit last week. John Fetterman wore a suit to the joint speech of the House and the Senate by Benjamin Netanyahu. And wasn't that amazing? There was no hoodie. there were no shorts. It was a remarkable change. We're going to see a lot of things happening today. As I said, Donald Trump's going to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu. There'll be some kind of public press event after that. I'm sure you'll hear all about it over the weekend. And then we will see what happens as the 6 o'clock deadline. There is a looming 6 o'clock deadline for anyone who would dare to challenge Kamala Harris. How dare you challenge Kamala Harris? Yeah. We'll see what happens because she wants to know.
What kind of country do we want to live in?
One that allows the democratic process to be respected and not to expunge 14 million votes. Have a great weekend. Get outside. Get some of that free vitamin D, and then let's get back together next week. Till then, it's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant, reminding you, testudo, my friends, testudo.